Hello everybody and welcome to History Bite number 247, dated May 10th, 2021. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History Bite is entitled President Clinton's Supreme Court Appointments. William Jefferson Clinton, otherwise known as Bill Clinton, served as the 42nd President of the United States of America from January 20th, 1993 to January 20th, 2001. During President Clinton's 8 years in office, he had the opportunity to name two individuals to the Supreme Court of the United States. Clinton, a Democrat, and the first Democratic president in 13 years prior to that time, had the opportunity thus to replace two judicial legends. Justice Byron White, who had been appointed to the court in 1962 by President John F. Kennedy, and Justice Harry Blackman, who had been appointed to the court in 1970 by President Richard Nixon. White's retirement in 1993 came after 31 years of distinguished service. During his time on the court, White had been a moderate liberal overwhelmingly, typically being more conservative in criminal law matters and liberal in civil rights and civil liberties matters. Upon his retirement, announcing his retirement in March of 1993, at the age of 76, White, however, described the situation as this, that it was essentially time for him to go, and that he was a conservative who had long occupied a traditionally Democratic seat. And indeed, Justice White certainly was more conservative than many Republican appointees to the court. Kind of one of those ironic things, because, normally Democratic appointments to the court remain true to liberalism. And it's usually the Republican conservative appointments to the court that tend to drift to the left over time. Sometimes, not all of them. Rarely do you have Democratic appointees, liberal Democratic appointees, that move to the right. Justice White's tenure on the court certainly was anything but consistent in ideology, and he certainly fluctuated a great deal depending on the issue at hand. So, with the announcement of Justice White's retirement in 1993, President William Jefferson Clinton, aka Bill Clinton, began an unprecedentedly large search for Supreme Court nominees, And I say unprecedented because, Clinton's, selection list was ginormous. I mean, he literally seemingly went through all segments to find a nominee. Clinton's choice would be, for the record, the first Supreme Court nomination by a Democratic president since President Johnson's failed nomination of Abe Fortas as Chief Justice in 1968. What is that, about 25 years earlier from 1993? Yes. We all know how that turned out, and that's covered in another video if you want to know more about it. So President Clinton certainly knew that, he had to, pick the right person, lest, he go through that, and knowing that Republicans were still a little salty about Robert Bork's rejection about 6 years earlier in 1987, top officials in the Clinton administration did not want a nominee that was too controversial. So, when I say he went through, exceptionally large number of people, he truly did. Clinton's initial choice for the job was New York Governor Mario Cuomo, who initially accepted, but later turned it down, citing that his duties to the people of New York came first. So then Clinton began considering prominent legal scholars such as Lawrence Tribe and others from Harvard, many of whom which were deemed, maybe too radical or just not confirmable. He went through many politicians and his own cabinet members. A notable politician was former Senator George Mitchell of Maine. And, you know, Mitchell was certainly confirmable, but he decided to stay in the Senate to help pass the president's agenda. You know, he didn't really want to be a Supreme Court justice. Everything's not for everybody, okay? You know, like I said, he also considered some of his cabinet members. He also considered several existing federal judges as well, and some state judges as a possibility to fill the Supreme Court vacancy. You know, First Circuit Judge Stephen Breyer was one of those considerations for the seat, but Breyer at this point was not, you know, particularly exactly what Clinton wanted. You know, he was seen as, you know, a bit too aloof and not very friendly. All right. So Clinton passed him. Clinton also considered, what was it? 8th Circuit Judge Richard Arnold. You know, I had to reference that, who, you know, was kind of sick at the time. And undoubtedly, you know, that would have compromised his ability to serve effectively. So ultimately, you know, the choice came down to U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who had been appointed to that court in 1980 by President Jimmy Carter. Okay, Carter didn't make any Supreme Court appointments, but he did make quite a few lower federal court appointments, and one of those appointments was of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, Ginsburg, as we all know, was a well-known civil rights attorney advocating for the equal rights for women. Okay, she was affectionately known as the Thurgood Marshall of women's rights. Okay, certain people considered her to be, you know, a bit too radical. Others were concerned that she might not be radical enough in areas outside of women's rights. You know, and overall, you know, but she had plenty of support, okay, from Republicans in the Senate, which was key because Democrats certainly supported her nomination. All right. And as such, President Clinton would indeed nominate Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the Supreme Court of the United States. All right. She would be confirmed by a 96-3 vote in August 1993. Okay, only 3 senators voted against her nomination, and 1 senator did not vote at all. Okay, thus, Ruth Bader Ginsburg would succeed Justice Byron White on the Supreme Court of the United States. Ginsburg would go on to serve on the court for the next 27 years until her death in September of 2020. At the age of 87. To date, she is the most recent member of the Supreme Court to die in office. Over her near 3 decades on the Supreme Court of the United States, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg established the liberal lion legacy that most expected that she would. Okay, on the court, she was a tireless defender of not only the rights of women, but of minorities, of gay individuals, you know, and other marginalized individuals in society. You know, one of her most prominent opinions was United States versus Virginia in 1996, which opened the Virginia Military Institute to women. Okay, she was also a great dissenter, writing some very notable dissents in Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the Hobby Lobby case in 2014, you know, and certainly many others. And her status as the court's leading liberal came with the retirement of Justice John Paul Stevens in 2010. At that point, she became the court's longest-serving liberal member and assumed the throne accordingly. And for the next 10 years, led the court's liberal wing, you know, sometimes in victory, sometimes in defeat, okay? You know, her passionate dissents, you know, pointing out the errors of conservative majorities, gained her the nickname, the notorious RBG. All right, I know we've all heard that. And indeed, she was, vicious crusader. She did not play. Justice Ginsburg did not mince her words and didn't hesitate on calling out conservatives, on their BS, pretending things didn't exist that clearly did. Like I said, her Shelby County dissent was probably her most poignant one overall, where she accused the majority in striking down part of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Striking that down in the eyes of Justice Ginsburg was the equivalent of throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm just because you're not getting wet. Deep, simple analogy, but very powerful. Even the dumbest person in the world can understand that one. It's foolish, okay? Foolish to throw away that umbrella just because you're not getting wet. Eventually, you will get wet, and then you ain't going to have any umbrella. Straightforward. But, of course, Justice Ginsburg also suffered from a lot of health issues during her time on the court, and many people did not think she would serve as long as she did, okay? Many people urged her to retire under the administration of President Barack Obama, but she refused to do so. At one point, making a reference of who would you rather see on the Supreme Court in my place, okay? Take that statement how you will. But, in hindsight, it may have been better for her to step down under President Obama no later than 2013 or 2014 so that, successor more to her liking could have been named and confirmed. But what do I always say? C'est la vie. So Justice Ginsburg passed away in September of 2020 at the age of 87 and was succeeded on the court in October of 2020, very close to the 2020 presidential election by Justice Amy Barrett. All right. So that's President Clinton's first Supreme Court appointment, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. His second Supreme Court appointment came in April of 1994 with the retirement of Justice Harry Andrew Blackman. Blackman, like I said, had been appointed to the court in 1970 by President Richard Nixon. He was Nixon's fourth choice to fill the Supreme Court vacancy left by resigning Justice Abe Fortas in 1969. While he was serving as a judge on the Eighth Circuit, Blackman was generally a conservative, and he continued to be conservative in his early years on the Supreme Court. But with time, especially beginning by around the mid-1970s and into the 1980s, Blackman slowly moved from the court's right wing to its center wing to a firm member of its left wing by the time he retired in 1994. Blackman, perhaps his most famous opinion in 24 years on the Supreme Court was that of Roe versus Wade in 1973, the decision that established a constitutional right to an abortion. All right. One of the most controversial decisions in the Supreme Court's history, and one that Blackman defended till his dying day. All right. Blackman also evolved into somewhat of a criminal law moderate liberal, even renouncing the constitutionality of capital punishment before he left the court. All right. Making him only the third justice in history at that point, along with former Justices William J. Brennan Jr. and Thurgood Marshall, to renounce the constitutionality of capital punishment. All right. So at the time of his retirement, Justice Harry Blackman was 85, going on 86 years old. All right. And, he had certainly hung around waiting for a Democratic president to name his successor. All right. And, unlike with the replacement of Justice Byron White, President Clinton didn't have a whole humongous pool of nominees this time around to replace Justice Blackman. He once again offered the spot to George Mitchell, former Senator George Mitchell of Maine, but Mitchell, just didn't want to be a Supreme Court justice, like I said. So ultimately, he once again turned to the pool of sitting federal judges, and Judge Arnold, who I mentioned as a possible replacement to White, that ultimately went to Ginsburg, like I said, he had cancer, and, that undoubtedly would have affected his ability to serve on the court. So ultimately, Clinton went back to First Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals Judge Stephen Gerald Breyer. All right. A very prominent liberal First Circuit judge who also, like Ginsburg, had been appointed to that court by President Jimmy Carter. All right. I believe it was around 1980 as well. So Ginsburg and Breyer had been appointed roughly around the same point to different circuits. All right. So President Clinton nominated Judge Breyer to fill the vacancy left by Justice Harry Blackman. And Breyer was confirmed by an 87-9 vote in July of 1994. And he assumed office shortly thereafter. And as of the time of this recording, Justice Stephen Breyer is still serving as a member of the Supreme Court of the United States and has served since 1994. All right. In his 27 years to date on the Supreme Court of the United States, okay, Breyer has defined his time as a moderate liberal, certainly a bit more moderate than Ruth Bader Ginsburg and other appointees during his early years. But now he is certainly a member of the more consistent left wing of the court, as the right wing is all but encompassed the entire body. But Breyer has never been a radical liberal during his time on the court and has even joined conservatives from time to time, albeit very rare. His tenure is marked by moderation, and, that has consistently led him to be, viewed in a more positive light by conservatives than other more liberal members of the court, some of which were appointed by Republican presidents. Okay. At the time of this recording, Justice Breyer, like I said, has served on the court for 27 years nearly, and he is 82 years old, going on 83 years old. All right. Many people would like to see him retire from the court either this year, 2021, or certainly no later than next year, 2022, so that President Joseph Biden may be able to name his successor. They are urging Biden not to stay on the court too long, lest another Ginsburg happen and Breyer dies in office under potentially a Republican president, thus further decreasing the court's liberal bloc, or for him to die in office while the Republicans hold the Senate, certainly forcing President Biden to name a much more moderate nominee than he may perhaps want to nominate. Okay, so those are President Clinton's two Supreme Court appointments. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who served from 1993 until her death in September 2020. She served for 27 years on the Supreme Court of the United States, August 1993 to September 2020, and is the most recent justice to pass away in office. Okay, and his other appointment came in July of 1994 with Justice Stephen Gerald Breyer, who has served consistently since that time. At the time of this recording, Breyer is in his 27th year on the Supreme Court of the United States. All right, so that covers President Clinton's two appointments to the Supreme Court. If you have any questions or controversies, leave them down below. I'll be happy to answer them. All right. If you've not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'd be most graciously appreciative if you did that right now. Just hit that little red subscribe button and we'll be in business. All right. And if you liked this video, which I hope you did, learned a thing or two from it, drop me a like. That I'd appreciate it so much, more than words can say. So again, thank you everybody for listening to this video. I appreciate, you listening to me ramble and teach this information, which brings me so much joy. All right. What brings me more joy is when you actually learn something from it. Okay. So take care. Stay safe out there. Be blessed in all you do. And I'll talk to you at the next bite. Peace.